Welcome to My Irish Radio, music and culture news, your connection to everything happening in the world of Irish music and culture. I'm Jamie Flanagan. Each episode will share the latest news from Ireland's vibrant music scene, from traditional and folk to rebel ballads, pub tunes, Celtic rock, and today's top Irish pop. We'll also bring you updates on festivals, cultural events, and people keeping Irish heritage alive around the world. And remember, My Irish Radio is more than just a station. It's your community, your soundtrack, your voice. You can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com and through the links in the podcast description below. Here's the best part. You can be part of it. Host your very own show on My Irish Radio. Choose your playlist, share your stories, make My Irish Radio your Irish Radio. Let's get into what's happening this week in Irish music and culture.
So, imagine you turn on your TV,
right,
to watch literally the biggest, glitziest, most highly produced pop music competition in the world.
Yeah, the kind of thing with massive light shows and wind machines.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But instead, your national broadcaster has just decided to show a 30-year-old sitcom about two hapless priests trying to write a song.
Wow.
Yeah. You're just sitting there looking at the screen, realizing that an entire nation has just decided to weaponize an inside joke on the global stage.
It is a profound image, honestly. And it perfectly encapsulates how culture can be used as a blunt instrument, really, when a society feels this sudden need to make a statement.
We are exploring a single incredibly dense source today. It's the Emerald Echoes briefing from mid-May 2026.
Right.
And our mission for you today is to extract the mechanics of what is happening in Irish music and culture right now. Because it is fascinating. We're basically looking at a society operating in these wild extremes.
Oh, absolutely.
On one hand, you have local artists fighting these brutal economic conditions, but literally building their own underground systems from scratch.
Yeah, just from the ground up.
And then at the exact same time, this relatively small island is exerting this massive, disproportionate level of global soft power, which, leads right up to that Eurovision boycott I just mentioned.
The briefing provides such a fascinating cross-section of all this. We are looking at a culture that is simultaneously defending its local physical spaces and aggressively expanding its international footprint.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to start on the ground in Dublin. The economic reality that's outlined in the briefing is, well, it's stark.
Very stark.
Yeah. For example, the folk duo Limoncello. They recently went public and spoke out heavily about how the rising cost of living is fundamentally dismantling the artist community.
Right, the rent crisis.
Rent is just out of control. And we hear about this in major cities all the time, right? The creatives get priced out. But I don't really get it, though.
Yeah.
If rent in Dublin is that crippling, why stay?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Why are these artists stubbornly digging their heels in instead of just, packing up and moving to Berlin or somewhere cheaper?
Because if you just up and leave the city, you are abandoning the ecosystem.
Okay.
The music scene we are talking about, it isn't just a collection of individuals recording in their bedrooms, right? It relies heavily on physical proximity.
Like the actual venues and stuff.
Exactly. It's the shared venues, the backroom pub sessions, the chance encounters between, say, a traditional fiddle player and an electronic producer. If the artists just disperse to find cheaper rent across the continent, that specific, localized cross-pollination, it collapses entirely.
So they are fighting for the physical space.
Yeah.
But what really caught my eye is that they were fighting back by building digital infrastructure.
Yes.
The briefing highlights the launch of something called Subvert Alternative.
Right. Subvert Alternative, it's an artist-owned co-op, and it is designed specifically to offer a functional alternative to traditional streaming services or even platforms like Bandcamp.
See, I look at this and I think of it almost like a farm-to-table movement, but for music.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Because instead of handing your tracks over to some massive corporate supermarket that takes 99% of the profit and dictates how your work is displayed, you're building a local farmer's market.
Exactly.
But practically speaking, how does a local co-op actually compete with the convenience of a giant algorithm?
Well, the thing is, it doesn't try to compete on convenience.
It doesn't.
No, it competes on sustainability and on direct patronage. The traditional digital infrastructure, the major streaming models, they act essentially as digital landlords.
Oh, digital landlords. That's interesting.
Yeah, because the platform owns the space, they own the data, and they decide what tiny fraction of a cent the creator gets per stream. And artists in Dublin are already being squeezed to the breaking point by their physical landlords.
Right, they can't afford rent.
Exactly. They have realized they simply cannot afford to be squeezed by digital landlords at the exact same time.
That makes a lot of sense. The margins are already way too thin.
So by building a co-op like Subvert Alternative, they are pooling their resources to own the means of distribution.
Okay.
In this co-op model, the artists share the hosting costs, they retain the data of who is actually listening to their music, and they capture the direct financial support from their fans without some massive tech company taking a huge cut.
Right.
It is a defense mechanism built on community knowledge rather than, venture capital.
It's a really aggressive form of survival. You aren't just protesting the system. You are attempting to render the system irrelevant to your community.
Yeah, bypass it completely.
And that same defiant energy, it seems to be bleeding directly into the music they are actually making right now. Because if we look at the releases from May 2026, the spectrum is just massive.
It is a highly productive month. The economic pressure does not seem to be slowing down the output at all.
Not at all. Let's look at the traditional side first. You have fiddle player Britt Harper and piano and fiddle player Ryan Malloy putting out a new duo album called Foints.
Right.
And that is deeply rooted, acoustic, historical music. But then, on the exact same timeline, in the indie and alternative space, the band Really Good Time announces their debut album Affirmations, which features a lead single literally titled Do It.
A very different vibe.
Completely. And the briefing doesn't stop there. We have trending tracks from Cable Boy, David Kitt, and a group with the incredible name 9 Inch Noise.
Yeah, that's quite a name. And the live calendar reflects that same density, too.
Oh, yeah.
You have Gemma Hayes performing at the National Concert Hall, Mick Flannery's run of The House Must Win at the Everyman down in Cork, the Dublin Dance Festival blending late-night music into its programming,
Right.
and even the International Literature Festival Dublin bringing in musical artists like Throwing Snow alongside writers like Dara Fleming and Eleanor Moss.
That blurring of lines right there, having a music producer like Throwing Snow at a literature festival.
Yeah.
That brings up something I'm really curious about. Well, I look at this list, going from an acoustic fiddle duo to a band called 9 Inch Noise, and I wonder about the internal friction. Because in my experience looking at other cultural hubs, the purists usually hate the avant-garde, and the modernists resent the traditionalists. How do you have deeply traditional acoustic music sitting right next to abrasive noise rock without the scene fracturing? Does the old clash with the new here?
So that is a really common dynamic in places where tradition is treated like classical music, right? Like something locked behind glass in a museum.
Something you can't touch.
Exactly. But the Irish musical tradition functions entirely differently. It is fundamentally an oral tradition.
Meaning passed down by ear?
Yes. Historically, it's passed down by ear, played in social settings, and constantly evolving with every single session. The structure of a traditional reel or jig is set, but the ornamentation, the pace, the interpretation, that is inherently improvisational.
Ah, okay. So the concept of improvisation and adaptation is literally baked into the oldest music they have.
It's the core operating system of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because these artists have such an unshakable, deeply internalized sense of their cultural identity through that living tradition, it gives them immense creative security.
Oh, I see.
An artist can play a 300-year-old tune on a fiddle in the afternoon and then go program a modular synthesizer for a post-punk set that night.
And no one blinks an eye.
Right. To them, it isn't a contradiction. It is the exact same continuous thread of Irish storytelling, just using different tools. The deep tradition acts as an anchor that allows the ship to sail into incredibly wild experimental waters without getting lost.
I see the connection there. If your identity isn't fragile, you don't have to rigidly protect it from outside influence. You can just play with it.
Exactly.
And because of that unique blend, that grounded tradition mixed with fearless modern experimentation, this local scene doesn't stay contained. It acts like a massive magnet.
You're listening to My Irish Music and Culture News, brought to you by My Irish Radio, streaming the best in Irish and Celtic music all day, every day. From classic jigs and reels to the latest Irish rock and pub favorites, we celebrate the sound of Ireland worldwide. Want to be more than a listener? Be a host. Share your love for the Irish music by hosting your own show on My Irish Radio. It's easy to get started. Just send us an email, myirishradio@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com. Make My Irish Radio your Irish Radio.
Looking at the briefing, the flow of cultural traffic in and out of the country right now is operating like a massive global roundabout.
The scale of international exchange for a nation of its size is always worth analyzing. It's huge.
Let's look at the incoming traffic first. The briefing lists major international heavyweights flying in to perform. You have Wolfpack playing Vickers Street in July.
Which is a great venue.
Yeah. You've got Mike D of the Eastie Boys joining the lineup for the Beyond the Pale Festival. And then you have the Foo Fighters playing Other Voices in Dingle.
That one is wild.
Wait, taking a massive stadium rock band and putting them in a tiny church in a remote town on the Dingle Peninsula.
Yeah, a town with a population of a couple of thousand people, forcing the global mainstream to interact with the intimate, rural reality of the country.
It's crazy. Then you look at the outgoing traffic, which is just as heavy. We have Jessie Buckley, an Irish talent, being celebrated globally for her top film roles. You have Isabel Nolan's visual art piece, Dream Shook, being showcased at the absolute pinnacle of the art world, the Venice Biennale.
Huge achievement.
There is a major Irish classical delegation heading to Classical NetXD in Budapest for a 4-day networking event. And representing the diaspora in the UK, a 21-year-old named Kerry Manzi was just crowned the New Yorkshire Rose at the Leeds Irish Centre, which puts her in the running for the Rose of Tralee.
Right.
Which is essentially a massive global homecoming festival celebrating Irish women across the diaspora.
Hollywood, Venice, Budapest, Leeds. The geographical spread is immense.
My question is, how is this engineered? How does a geographically small place, an island on the edge of the Atlantic, maintain this massive, disproportionate level of global cultural exchange? It can't just be that the music is good, right?
No, it isn't just organic talent. It is state-sponsored structural support and a very deliberate national philosophy.
Okay.
Ireland treats the arts not merely as entertainment, but as a vital cultural export and a primary mechanism for global diplomacy. When the briefing mentions Culture Ireland supporting that classical delegation in Budapest, that is the government actively facilitating the export of culture. They understand that sending artists abroad is just as critical to the national interest as exporting technology or agriculture. It is the purest form of soft power.
So they're actively subsidizing their artists to go out and conquer international networks.
They are, and they combine that export strategy with a really brilliant import strategy.
Like the Foo Fighters.
Exactly. Taking the Foo Fighters to Other Voices in Dingle flips the typical power dynamic of the music industry. Usually, the periphery has to travel to the center, right?
Yeah, the local artist has to go to London or Los Angeles to be validated.
Right. But by bringing global superstars to a tiny, acoustic, community-driven venue in Kerry, they bring the center to the periphery. The global giant comes to the local hearth. It asserts that the local culture is just as significant as the global machine.
That is a fascinating strategy.
Yeah.
It forces the world to engage with Ireland on Ireland's terms. And that constant cycle of asserting identity, of managing the diaspora, it connects to something much older in the Irish psyche. The briefing bridges this modern cultural posturing directly into the heritage and historical news of the month.
You really cannot separate the current cultural landscape from the historical trauma that shaped it. The past is highly active in the present.
Right. So right now, there is a major focus on the newly relevant 1926 Irish census. Genealogists and historians are digging into this data, looking for insights into pre-independence Ireland. And simultaneously, you have the International Famine Commemoration taking place not in Ireland, but in Massachusetts.
A very deliberate choice to connect the trauma of the 19th century famine directly to the massive resulting diaspora in the United States.
It's all about memory. The 1926 census was the first census taken after the establishment of the Free State, right? It was a nation trying to count and define itself after centuries of outside rule.
A pivotal moment of self-definition, yes.
Which brings us to the most jarring news in the briefing. The pivot from historical self-definition to modern geopolitical posturing.
Yeah.
The Eurovision Song Contest.
Right.
Now, before we get into this, we have a critical rule check for you, the listener. We need to be explicitly clear that we are impartially reporting the facts from the source material regarding this boycott and Israel's participation.
Exactly.
We are not endorsing any political views or taking sides here. We are simply exploring how the event is shaping the cultural landscape, as outlined in the briefing.
That is the crucial lens here. We are analyzing mechanics of the cultural reaction, nothing more.
Okay, so the facts from the briefing are this. Arte, the national broadcaster, is enacting a massive cultural boycott of the 70th Eurovision Song Contest due to Israel's participation. But the mechanics of the boycott are what is so striking.
Yeah, it's very unique.
Instead of simply showing a black screen or, airing the evening news, Arte is replacing the grand final with a Eurovision-themed episode of the 1990s sitcom Father Ted.
The specific episode is My Lovely Horse.
My Lovely Horse. They are swapping a massive, incredibly lucrative, highly polished European pop contest for a 30-year-old sitcom episode about two priests trying to write a terrible song for a fictional European competition.
It's amazing.
I have to say, it is a masterstroke of subversive programming. But why a sitcom? Why use humor as the tool for a serious geopolitical boycott?
Because it weaponizes an inside joke to completely reclaim the narrative.
Reclaim the narrative? How?
Well, think about it. If RT had simply aired a serious documentary or gone off the air, the media narrative would be, Ireland is missing out on Eurovision.
Oh, right.
But by airing Father Ted, a show deeply embedded in the national consciousness, the narrative becomes, Ireland doesn't care about your contest. We are perfectly content laughing at our own brilliant comedic heritage.
It's a flex. It is a way of saying we have enough internal cultural wealth that we do not need this massive European machinery to entertain us or validate us tonight.
And if we look at the entire briefing as a whole, a very clear, cohesive pattern emerges. I mean, how do you connect the 1926 census, the famine commemoration, a grassroots co-op like Subvert Alternative, and the Father Ted broadcast?
They all feel deeply defensive, but in a highly proactive way.
They are all fundamentally about a nation defined by its historical struggles for independence and its survival through mass immigration.
Right.
A nation with that specific historical DNA, the memory of the famine, the fight for the free state captured in the 1926 census, it understands that culture is a tool for survival. When the system doesn't work for you, you don't just passively complain, you assert your own identity.
That ties everything together perfectly. We started by looking at artists in Dublin who looked at the massive global streaming infrastructure, the Spotify model, and decided this system is broken and squeezing us dry, so we're going to build Subvert Alternative and bypass you entirely.
It's the exact same instinct.
The national broadcaster looks at a massive global broadcasting infrastructure, the Eurovision Song Contest, and decides, we disagree with how this system is operating right now, so we are going to air an old sitcom and bypass you entirely.
It is the instinct to bypass broken or compromised systems using your own cultural capital. Whether it is economic pressure in Dublin or a geopolitical stance on a European stage, the response mechanism is the same. Build your own table, or simply refuse to sit at theirs and throw your own party instead.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about a mid-May briefing on Irish culture from 2026? Because it is a masterclass in how a society uses culture as a multi-tool.
Definitely.
We often think of art as just entertainment, something to put on in the background. But what we see here is culture being used as an economic shield against the cost of living, as a diplomatic bridge to maintain ties with the global diaspora stretching from Massachusetts to Yorkshire, and as a highly effective megaphone to assert a sovereign voice on the world stage.
It really demonstrates that culture is the engine of a society, especially when external systems fail or become oppressive. The tradition is the anchor, but the application is incredibly modern.
It is fiercely independent.
Yeah.
And leaves us with a really fascinating dynamic to consider. We saw how a local music co-op and a 90s sitcom broadcast stemmed from the exact same subversive, system-bypassing instinct.
Which brings us to a critical question to mull over long after we finish today.
Oh, lay it on us.
The ability to bypass traditional digital and broadcast infrastructure is clearly highly refined in this culture. So if that instinct is this strong and this effective, what other traditional global systems might small, highly cultured, and deeply interconnected nations completely redefine next?
Wow.
If a community can successfully bypass massive tech streaming platforms and international broadcasting giants through sheer cultural solidarity, what happens when they apply that exact same community-driven creativity to bypassing, say, global finance models or traditional international diplomacy?
When the local hearth realizes it has more power than the global machine, the rules change entirely. That is a brilliant thought to leave on. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we will catch you on the next one.
That's it for this episode of My Irish Radio, Music and Culture News. Thanks for joining us. And remember, you can hear the best in Irish and Celtic music 24 hours a day at myirishradio.com. If you ever dreamed of sharing your favorite tunes and stories, now's your chance. Become one of the hosts. Host your own show right here on My Irish Radio. Just send us an email. It's easy as that. myirishradio@gmail.com. Until next time, it's Jamie Flanagan. Keep the music playing and keep Ireland in your heart.